There are some books that entertain you. Some books educate you. And then, there are books that quietly sit beside you long after you've finished reading them. The Kite Runner is one of those books. It doesn't arrive loudly. There are no grand fantasy worlds here, no complicated systems, no intellectual gymnastics trying to prove how clever it is. Instead, it walks into your mind carrying memory, guilt, friendship, betrayal, and the kind of silence that follows a wound you never fully healed. You begin this book thinking it's about two boys in Afghanistan flying kites. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, the story tightens around your chest. Because underneath everything, the Kite Runner asks a terrifyingly human question. What happens when the worst thing you've ever done becomes the thing that defines your entire life? And perhaps more importantly, can a person ever truly redeem themselves? Today, let's sit down and talk about The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Not as a school assignment, not as literary analysis, but as one reader speaking to another, like a kite caught high above a winter city. Some stories stay suspended in your mind long after the story ends. This is one of them. Published in 2003, The Kite Runner was Khaled Hosseini's debut novel. And what a debut it was. The book became a worldwide phenomenon almost immediately. Translated into dozens of languages and touching readers across cultures, countries, and generations. What makes that remarkable is this. The novel is deeply rooted in Afghanistan. Its streets, traditions, food, language, history. Everything feels intimate and personal. And yet the emotions inside the story feel universal. Fear, jealousy, love, cowardice, regret. Those things don't need translation. Khaled Hosseini was born in Kabul and later moved to the United States after political turmoil changed the course of his family's life. And you can feel that duality throughout the novel. This is not a book written by someone observing Afghanistan from a distance, like a tourist holding a camera. This feels like memory, like someone trying to preserve fragments of a lost world before history swallowed it whole. There's a particular kind of writing that can only come from lived experience. Every street name, every smell, every family gathering in this book carries the weight of something personally remembered. That intimacy is why the novel crosses every cultural boundary. Pain written from memory reads differently from pain written from imagination. The story follows Amir, a young boy growing up in Kabul, and Hassan, the son of his father's servant. They grow up together. They laugh together, fly kites together, run through snowy streets together. But even in childhood, there is an invisible wall between them. Class, ethnicity, power. The boys may grow up under the same sky, but the world never lets them stand on equal ground. And then, one moment changes everything. I won't spoil the story for those who haven't read it, but I will say this. This is one of those rare books where a single decision echoes through an entire lifetime. Like a crack moving through glass. It begins at one point, and slowly, quietly, spreads in every direction until the whole surface is changed. What follows is decades of consequence. Exile, distance, the particular grief of a homeland frozen in memory while reality moves on without permission. And the emotional atmosphere of the book shifts with it. At first, parts of it almost feel warm, nostalgic. Children chasing kites across winter skies, street vendors, family gatherings, a city alive with ordinary people living ordinary lives. And then, history enters the room. Political instability, violence, loss. The atmosphere changes slowly, almost like daylight fading without you noticing, until nostalgia itself starts feeling painful. Because Amir isn't just remembering his childhood, he's haunted by it. The horror in this book isn't supernatural. It's the horror of memory, the horror of knowing exactly where your life broke, and replaying that moment endlessly. That kind of haunting is quiet, patient, and it never quite lets go. Beneath the plot, The Kite Runner is really exploring 4 ideas that stay with you long after the story ends. The first is guilt and redemption. And this is the beating heart of the novel. Most stories tell us heroes rise through courage, but Amir's journey begins with cowardice. And that's what makes him feel real. Because human beings are complicated. Sometimes we fail the people we love. Sometimes we remain silent when we should speak. Sometimes fear wins. The novel understands this uncomfortable truth deeply, but it also refuses to stay trapped there. It keeps asking, can redemption erase guilt? Or does redemption simply teach us how to carry it differently? That question lingers. The second is friendship across inequality. And the relationship between Amir and Hassan is one of the most emotionally devastating friendships in modern fiction, because it's loving, but unequal. Hassan's loyalty feels pure, almost painfully sincere, while Amir spends much of the story wrestling with insecurity, jealousy, and the desperate need for approval. The tragedy is that children often inherit divisions they didn't create. They're handed walls they didn't build, and expected to live inside them as if they're natural. The third is fathers and sons. Amir spends much of his life trying to earn his father's respect, trying to become worthy. And beneath that struggle is a deeply human ache, the desire to be seen, to be enough. The novel understands how the search for parental approval can quietly shape an entire identity for decades. And the fourth, perhaps the one that hit me most personally, is memory and homeland. Because the Afghanistan Amir remembers becomes almost mythical over time. Frozen in memory while reality moves on without permission. And I think many readers connect with this even outside migration. We all have places in our lives that no longer exist the way we remember them. Childhood homes, old friendships, earlier versions of ourselves. Sometimes nostalgia is just love wearing funeral clothes. That line, nostalgia is just love wearing funeral clothes, came to me while reading this book, because that's what grief for a lost place feels like. Not the sharp pain of loss, but the quiet ache of love with nowhere left to go. What stayed with me after reading The Kite Runner wasn't just the plot. It was the emotional honesty of it. This book doesn't try to make people look perfect. It allows them to be weak, petty, afraid, selfish. And somehow that makes the moments of compassion feel even more powerful, because they're earned against the grain of human nature rather than assumed. There's also something deeply unsettling about how relatable Amir can become. Not because readers would make the exact same choices, but because most of us understand the instinct to avoid discomfort, to protect ourselves, to delay courage until it's too late. And that recognition, that moment of uncomfortable self-awareness, is where the book does its deepest work, because it reminds us that morality isn't built in grand speeches. Sometimes it's built in tiny moments where we either step forward or look away. And perhaps the reason this novel resonates so deeply across the world, across cultures and languages and generations, is because it believes people are capable of change. Not magical change, not instant transformation, but painful, difficult, imperfect redemption. The kind earned step by step, with no guarantee of forgiveness at the end. Just the quiet necessity of trying anyway. There is a sentence in this book, I won't quote it exactly, but it speaks to the possibility of being good again, of finding a path back to yourself after you've walked away from who you wanted to be. That sentence lands differently every time I think about it, because it isn't a promise, it's an invitation. Should you read The Kite Runner? Yes, unreservedly. Not because it's famous, not because it's critically acclaimed, but because some stories expand your emotional vocabulary. They make you understand human beings a little better. They make you more patient with human failure, including your own. And they remind you that the distance between the person you are and the person you want to be is never fixed. It's heartbreaking, beautiful, quietly devastating. But if you are someone who believes that great literature should make you feel less alone in your own humanity, then the Kite Runner will find exactly the right place inside you. Go in slowly, let it breathe, and when the story tightens around your chest, don't pull away. That tightening is the point. And with that, me, Nikhil, signing off. We'll meet again soon with another book, another quiet conversation, and another cup of coffee. Until then, take care. If you get some value from this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video to a fellow reader and keep turning the page. Thank you for your time.